Hi, everyone. I'm Chief Shon Barnes, and I'm here with Tyler Gregg, who's off camera, who is our Public Information Officer, and I'm here with Captain Freedman. We want to talk a little bit today, or spend some time with you, talking about last year, talking about 180 consecutive days of protest, and what our police department is doing, not only to prepare to better serve our citizens, but also to better serve ourselves. Because when we are at a good place, when we have good officer safety and wellness, we do a better job for everybody. So, Tyler?
Yeah, so how did that look last year for Madison and for the nation? I mean, 2020 was rough on all of us in many aspects.
Yeah, 2020 was certainly an unprecedented year for police departments all over the country, and rightfully so. Many things happened during the course of 2019 and 2020 that really led our citizens to say, I want more of a say in how we're police. And we've always been okay with that in Madison. We call that the Madison Way. And when that happens and people decide that they want to express their First Amendment rights, our number one priority is to ensure that they can do that and do that in a way that's safe for everyone.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the Madison Method, and we've been doing the Madison Method for decades. Crowd management is one of the things that the Madison Police Department does best. A lot of the larger events that we have, 4th of July demonstrations and celebration, and Mifflin Street celebrations, and some other large gatherings, Freak Fest to name another one. Captain Freeman, what is the Madison Method, and what have we done as a department to help facilitate First Amendment rights?
Yeah, so as you've said, this has evolved over decades here in Madison, and I've been very honored and privileged to be a part of seeing the training, the experience, the review, the continuous improvement of our Madison Method in crowd management. And we put that, as Chief Barnes said, into full implementation last year with the pace and the frequency of protest activity ranging from very small pop-up organic protests to giant crowds presenting a variety of challenges. So we have this method, and I think it's important for me to read through it because words matter, and I think it shows the thought that goes into it. And that first bullet point is, we protect citizens' constitutional rights to assemble, petition the government, and engage in free speech.
So, Chief, what does that mean to you?
That means to me that our First Amendment is one of the most important rights that are guaranteed to our country and to our members. It's important to note that not every country on this planet has those rights. So it's very important to me as a police leader that we do everything that we can to ensure that that happens peacefully. It also means to me that whether the message is a message that we all agree on, or a message that only a few of us agree on, we still owe it to ourselves to ensure that all voices are heard. And that's one of the things that I saw in protests down in North Carolina last year, is that we had voices that were pro-police, anti-police. We had voices that spoke out against Confederate statutes that we had in our city, and voices that were in support of Confederate statutes. So we had to manage a variety of different opinions in North Carolina last year. And so what I bring to Madison is just an appreciation for that, and an appreciation for everyone's First Amendment right as any person who is in our city.
Yeah, number two, and it feeds directly off of what the Chief said, we are impartial and remain neutral regardless of the issue, whether it is that unpopular or popular or in the moment.
Exactly. And Tyler, that's tough.
Yeah.
Because as a police officer, it's not about the message, it's about protecting the messenger. And, I have been on the receiving end of things that, quite frankly, would have hurt my feelings had I not been a professional. But we'll talk later on about how we prepare our officers in the face of that.
Yeah. Good.
And we maintain open dialogue with citizens and the news media before, during, and after these protests.
And that's really important, right, is getting that message out to our community, especially in the interest of public safety. So if we're aware of some events that might attract a large crowd, we want the public to know that we'll be there to help facilitate that message, but we're also there to make sure people are safe. So.
Absolutely, and this is just one of many recordings that I think that we'll make with some of our subject matter experts in the police department, because I believe that the media is a very important part of our community, but I also believe that you can never communicate enough. And so we won't cover everything today in our preparation, but what we'll do is let you know that we're working on a few things. We'll start with our guiding principles, which is our Madison Method, and then we'll extend on these videos, which is a part of our Madison Method.
We monitor demonstrations and marches to protect individual rights and ensure public safety.
Right. Key word there is monitor, in my opinion. We don't manage the protests. We're not there to tell protesters what they should say or where they should stand. And, that could give some heartburn to some people, citizens who want to know why we aren't directing them to walk left to right instead of right to left. That's really not our responsibility. We don't want to do anything that's going to give the impression that we don't value someone's First Amendment rights, because who knows who's up next, and we want to give everyone the same level. So the key word there is monitor, and that's what we do. We try to monitor protests.
And I think, as already has been discussed, the next bullet point, the key word there is going to be balance. So we balance the rights of demonstrators with the rights of the community at large.
Yeah. This is tough. And I think we learned that last year throughout the entire country. It's amazing that some of the things that I was managing in North Carolina, we managed up here in Wisconsin, and that is a delicate balancing act. But something that always guides me is, is it worth infringing on someone's First Amendment right so that someone feels comfortable, right? And so if I have to balance that, I would say that a moment of being uncomfortable versus someone's First Amendment right, to me, that's the balance that we have to do there.
And that's going to require restraint on our part at times, and that's the next bullet point, which is we use restraint in the use of force. We protect people first and property second.
Absolutely. And, this is tough, too. People will say, well, I've seen police departments across the country do this or do that or use tear gas or use some other crowd management tool. It's tough. And we have to determine, what we're balancing. One of the things that I struggled with in North Carolina was personal property damage. And although it may not seem that it's that important in the big scheme of things, you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And so setting a fire to something could be difficult. My father, who was a small business owner, often slept in the business early on, trying to get it off the ground and painting late at night when you wouldn't expect someone to be in there. And so although we will certainly, as Captain Freedman said, balance those rights, I would ask people to think about that before you damage property or set something on fire. There could be someone on the other side of that wall who's just up late at night to fix a problem that they don't want to have to pay someone to do. And then someone could get injured. And so intelligence is always evolving in these things, and we try to do our best. No police department is perfect, and we certainly won't be perfect in our response to demonstrations, but I will promise you we'll always make the best decision with the information that we're given.
Yeah, and the last point is circling back to the beginning is about continuous improvement, and it reads, we as peace officers pursue continuous improvement of our method.
Absolutely. I think continuous improvement obviously is one of our core values here at the police department, but the idea is that we debrief after every critical incident, and we try to learn from it. What could we have done differently? And that is what will make us a great police department. The fact that we're willing to admit when things don't go so well, and we're willing to fix that and move forward. And I think that's something that our citizens, our community members should be very proud of. That you have a police department that's willing to listen and willing to make the choices and the options better for the next time that incident comes up.
So it sounds like there's a a lot of preparation involved and some challenges too with policing large crowds. What are some of that preparation, and I guess what are some of those challenges too?
Yeah, so I am not a member of the special events team, but I have been a part of this department for well over 20 years, and I have been a part of a number of events, protests, marches, unfortunately, riotous behavior. And our approach is similar. It follows a similar pattern. We're going to gather intelligence. We do our best to assess, what is this group? How big are they going to be? Are they communicating with us? Are they engaging with us? Do they want to be part of the safety planning, the process to make this a safe event? And then we scale our resources based on that. And sometimes that involves patrol and strike team. Sometimes it's the special events team with SWAT bolstering them. There may be chiefs in the command post. There may be a sergeant running things in the field. And so we really do try to apply the right tool to the right job, so to speak. But when we're talking 180 days in a row and not always knowing what the next day is going to bring, it not only adds a logistical piece and a planning piece, but it adds to organizational stress, and long days exhaust officers. And so it's a very challenging environment in which to try to do our best and to fulfill all the steps of that Madison Method.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And some of the things that we're doing as far as preparation is we try to reach out to protest organizers to ask them, hey, is there anything that we can do? We've certainly been doing that this year. We make ourselves available. We're transparent. We don't hide. We have no secret plans or anything of that nature. So if someone wants to know what our plan is, they can certainly contact us. We certainly welcome that, because if you're organizing a protest, I think it's great. And one thing that we do is we try to get out our core values, like I spoke of before. We really do not want people lighting fires. We understand that sometimes traffic is blocked momentarily to get pedestrians through, and that's fine. We'll monitor that, as we said. But we have to be cognizant of EMS workers. We have to be cognizant of fire trucks that may need to get by, medical transport vans. How about the mother who has to go get her child from daycare at 6 o'clock, and if she's late, they charge her extra, and she's doing the best she can just to make sure that the child can get in daycare. We have to think about all these things as we begin to monitor and manage protests. So I just urge, our officers to kind of think about some of the things that we're working on, but I also urge our community to just be great community partners in your protest planning, and think about our community as a whole and how your actions may affect someone inadvertently.
And if I can add, literally every sort of real world challenge in people's lives that can manifest from these protests happened last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had the daycare, we had the medical issue, we had the, somebody just trying to get to work on time. And these things do have real impacts beyond how it impacts us and the people that are engaging in their First Amendment rights.
Absolutely.
How about the officers themselves? I know obviously this takes a lot of planning, a lot of resource intensive planning for sure. Mm-hmm. And what are we doing for our employees who are be working 12-hour shifts? What's that balance? And as a district captain, what are you conveying to your employees, to your officers, and how does that translate into the department?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one thing is, we're talking about it, and we have Chief Barnes, who is going to continue to make sure that that's ever present in the minds, not only the organization, but our public, which I think is very important. Mm-hmm. At a district level, whether I'm wearing my Midtown district cap or my SWAT hat, I'm going to be involved in these in one form or another. And so a lot of it is messaging, a lot of it is identifying issues from last year and trying to address them, make sure we don't have any challenges that weren't met or that could be improved upon from last year and see that this year. So one of the things we're doing is our officers all have hard gear that's been issued to them. Fortunately, they didn't have to wear it very often last year, but they don't get a lot of experience in that gear. We have a whole bunch of new officers on the street. So we're encouraging district commanders to have their sergeants take time out of their shift, go to those officers, pull out the hard gear, put it on, make sure it's all in working order, make sure they get comfortable, they know where it is. And so we take that uncertainty, like, man, I'm not really comfortable with this what could be a critical piece of equipment. And so whether it's equipment or a response in an SOP to like, this is how we want you to respond to this circumstance, or here's what we need you to do if, do X if Y. Those are things that we're trying to, again, get foremost in people's minds, because we know we throw a lot of stuff at them. So we say, hey, review this plan in the next couple of weeks. Make sure your gear is ready to go. Talk to each other and communicate to me, hey, we have an issue, so I can communicate it to an assistant chief. We can make sure then that chief can address it or at least manage it as best he can. So a lot of it's communication internally and externally.
It is, and I always talk about behind the badge, and so my 3 pillars that I always talk about is crime prevention, community engagement, and employee safety and wellness. And I think employee safety and wellness begins with behind the badge. So we talk to our officers, and I'm encouraging any officer to think about your family time. Think about spending time with your family when you can. Think about getting your proper amount of rest. Hydration is important. Thinking about packing a snack or something in your car or your squad, just in case if we were to manage a protest or monitor a protest. You could have some nourishment if you need it. We have certain officers who may need insulin or who may need a particular medication. We encourage them to call your doctor and call your pharmacist and maybe stock up on that, because if you run out in the middle of 180 days, I don't think it will be that this year, but protest, it may be difficult to get what you need. So plan for that. Making sure that your car has enough gas in it. And as much as you can, spend time with your loved ones and your family. And don't be afraid to communicate with them what you went through today, because holding it in and harboring it in is tough. One of the things that I did in Salisbury is I would have these debriefing sessions with my officers, particularly my African American officers who had to manage protests. And quite frankly, a lot of the anger was exhibited towards them. And so they needed a place where they can come and talk about it. And to hear officers say, and I've said it before, if I wasn't a police officer, I would be protesting, I would be marching. Because quite frankly, some of the things that we have all seen police officers do on camera, quite frankly, is not consistent with why we signed up for the job. And so as we create a better Madison Police Department, we want to give our officers an opportunity to talk to any commander about anything that's on your mind or how to prepare in the event we have these protests. I think that things will get better. I really do. But I think things will get better quicker if we do the work. And we have a police department that's willing to do the work.
And beyond talking to commanders, we have a very robust peer support program. And that's another hat that I wear. And that is a great opportunity for officers to talk to a peer, to have their families talk to officers or to EAP, to try to alleviate some of these concerns and to relieve themselves of some of this anxiety. And there are peer support officers throughout the department on all the different shifts. They are gearing up. Our team is gearing up because we know April is going to be very stressful. And so we're looking at creative ways and not so creative ways to be available and to encourage those conversations.
Absolutely. We have to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our community.